Hello, I am Dr. Emine Kaya.
And I am Dr. M.Suna ÖZCAN.
In this presentation, we will talk about our article that we prepared for the Journal of the Human and Social Science Researchers. We wrote the article together with my dear friend, Dr. M.Suna ÖZCAN. The title of our article is International Migration and the Rise of Islamophobia as a New Racism Type. The presentation plan of this article is as follows. First of all, we will talk about purpose, subject, and the method of the article. Secondly, Dr. ÖZCAN and I will give information about the general lines of the article. Finally, we will conclude our presentation by explaining the findings of the article. First of all, I would like to talk about the subject, purpose, and the scope of the article. The subject of the study is to examine the effects of dynamic in the encounters of people from different religions and their beliefs and understanding, which is one of the results of the phenomenon of international migration today. This study aims to analyze the rise of Islamophobia, one of the consequences of international migration, and the reasons for its transformation into new racism together with historical developments. A comparative historical sociological analysis method has been adopted. Now, I would like to give information about the general framework of this article. Migration has many consequences, not only nationally, but also internationally. In this respect, the effects of migration focus on deriving a picture that will be discussed starting from the international dimension. The conceptual framework of the study includes migration, immigration, and international migration. After the explanation of the concepts, Islamophobia will be examined as a new type of racism. At this point, the study aims to examine the effects of cultural racism on immigrants from a different religion in terms of historical developments and the consequences of international migration. In this respect, our main assumption is that international migration feeds and revolves Islamophobia as a new form of racism. This article consists of two main titles. The titles are as follows. The first is the conceptual framework. The second is two important consequences of international migration, xenophobia, and new racism. Now, Dr. ÖZCAN will give us detailed information about the first part of the article. Yes, Dr. ÖZCAN, please tell us the important details of the first part of the article. We are listening to you.
Thanks, Dr. Kaya. Migration is defined as a change. We have to ask that how. The main issue is lead people to immigrate. So the migration is a social phenomenon as we see it. In this point, we can see push and pull factors. Push factors is make people to leave out of the areas or their homes. People have to move other location in this point. So why people have to leave their homes or their area? We have to ask that. This could be bound with a war or lack of opportunity or else poor economy or etc. So in these circumstances, people decide to leave their homes or their countries. In this point, pull factors attract people. So what are these pull factors? Also, we have to ask that again. In these circumstances, people decide to leave their homes, as I said, and now the pull factors could be bound with economic, political, cultural, environmental issue. So it depends on people migration problems. For example, most recent issue is, as we know, it's climate and environmental problem. According to World Migration Report, human mobility due to environment and climate change has also important place in nowadays. Also, we can see a crucial and the most important factor is about a life issue. So the most crucial issue is, of course, searching peaceful life and avoiding the war conditions. If people move out of the area or their country because of political problem or life-threatening condition, they try to leave their country for their own safety. In this point, people try to find a place where government is supporting people and fulfilling their needs. So in this point, first of all, they try to find a peaceful place, and also they try to avoid life-threatening conditions. We have to admit that firstly. So we can say that if a country is politically unstable, people want to leave their place immediately. So this could cause a refugee problem, which is we can see in nowadays in Africa or Middle East region. So it leads refugee problem, and people feels that they had to flee, and this situation made them an asylum seeker. After 1970s, migration on the global axis started to draw attention. So when we look at the migration movement in history, we can see that the worker migration is increasing in 19th and 20th centuries, and nowadays we can see a new how can I say, new feature of migration problem, and mostly it can be seen in Middle East and Africa region. So as I said, migration is a complex process, but we can see, or we can make some patterns and some similarities to understand it. I can say that every migration move is unique because their conditions are different each other. So if we need to categorize migration, we can use two categories to understand migration. For example, temporary, permanent, legal, illegal, or as we study in our article, internal and international migrations. Of course, it's just a simple categorization to understand migration, and also it's bound with our study. International migrations involved border crossing. So if we read Everett's theory of migration, we can see that immigration is generally defined as a permanent or semi-permanent change of residence. So we can say that it could be bound with international immigration or migration. In this point, we can see that this is both situation, as I said before, permanent or semi-permanent. Both situation is an act of immigration, such as the involving of individual from one apartment to another. Lee explain in this study, it's like a move from Bombay, India to Iowa. It's just an example, of course, but however, the main point is the reality created by the initiation and consequences of such movements. Migration problem leads a displacement, which impacts on government policies, of course. In this context, recent developments, there is a global migration problem. According to Castells and Miller, in Middle East and North Africa, a wide area stretching from Morocco to Iran is affected by a complex population movement. Looking at the crisis and the conflicts in MENA area or MENA region, it is seen that millions of people have started to immigrate from countries such as Syria, Egypt, or other African or Middle East countries. As Castells and Miller point out, even though immigration has become increasingly political in recent years, this does not mean that immigration is something new. As I mentioned before, it's we can see in history, in 20th and 19th centuries. Because throughout the history, people have always acted to see new opportunities and escape poverty, conflict, or environmental degradation. However, it can be started that this situation caused a significant change in terms of international system. And of course, we can see the most crucial part after the post-Cold War period. So in this point, also we see that if government migrant policies are weak, it causes social effect, which is our article issue also. So what is it? Citizens get involved in debate about migrant and immigrant problems. They start to debate about how to handle with illegal or legal immigrant and migration problem and their effect on society, of course. This situation could lead to people alienating to other peoples or who come to country as a migrant or refugee. So in this study, we try to answer this situation, and of course, migration and immigrant issue could lead social breakdown. So thanks, Dr. Kaya.
Dr. ÖZCAN, thank you very much. Now I will try to give information about the details of importance of second part of article. In the second part, we first examined the concept of the xenophobia, neo-Racism, and Islamophobia, the relationship between them. Xenophobia is a rather vague psychological concept that defines a person's fear or avoidance of other persons or groups they perceive as foreigners. With this concept, foreigners are coded as carriers of different cultures that pose a threat to national integrity and should not be trusted. This situation generally stems from cultural centrism, and this understanding manifests itself with hating the cultures, traditions, and the customs of foreigners. On the other hand, it is seen that xenophobia has evolved recently, and it has been discussed more within the framework of new cultural racism. The reason for this is a kind of hostility towards all kinds of foreigners, all different ethnic and religion groups which are thought to have come later. Due to reasons such as capitalist relations, globalization, and immigration, people from different backgrounds, culture, and religions have come together in today's world, thereby transforming biological racism, which is an extension of xenophobia. In short, new racism is the hierarchy, marginalization, exclusion, and the hostility of people according to their common and cultural differences, such as different ethnic origin, language, religion, or belonging to certain values. As a result of the recent political, social, and economic developments and the transformation, especially in Western European countries, this new type of racism is rising as an extension of xenophobia. The increasing severity of prejudice and labeling from the past is interpreted as anti-Islamism and has made Islamophobia a current and important issue discussed with the framework of the concept of new racism. Under the first subtitle of Islamophobia as a new type of racism, we first defined the concept of Islamophobia and then tried to explain why Islamophobia is a new type of racism. Then under the second subtitle, we tried to analyze historical developments and rise of Islamophobia in the context of international migration. Consequently, the most important findings of the study are that the phenomenon of international migration compares people from different cultures, language, ethnic origin, and religions more in Western societies with a higher socioeconomic level and makes integration problem more unsolved, especially with internal dynamics such as the far rights and the media. In Western societies, in the context of historical crisis and development of Muslim immigrants, xenophobia and a kind of new cultural racism are more frequently encountered. This situation makes visible a dangerous process developing from Islamophobia to anti-Semitism. The presentation of our article has ended. Thank you very much for listening to us.
Thank you very much.